The Urusei Yatsura reboot has officially come to an end, and while that may be sad and very unfortunate to hear, all good things must come to an end, and that's exactly what happened quite recently with Urusei Yatsura releasing their final episode not too long ago, making the reboot have in total 46 episodes. And even though it was much more short than the original, since the original anime had much more episodes, and not only that but also had OVAs and movies as well, it was still able to make a great, funny, and very heartwarming story from beginning to end. And despite this series being from the 80s and 90s, it still holds up to this very day. The comedy was there, as well as with a great cast of characters that even if there was a character that only made one appearance, they still became very memorable even if they weren't shown all throughout the entirety of the show. Now, a while back I did make a video talking about the reboot of Urusei Yatsura, but it was mostly like a first impressions video, and now that I watched all 46 episodes, I want to talk about just what makes this series not only amazing, but something that's going to be very hard to forget. And it's no wonder why so many people became huge fans of this series when it was first introduced in the 80s and 90s, and that's because of its many messages that showed all throughout the entirety of Urusei Yatsura. Because while this series is considered a comedy and a majority of their episodes not being have to watch in order, it was still able to showcase beautiful messages that all followed one particular theme, and that is enjoying life and enjoying youth as a whole, because nobody stays young forever, and especially we all have one life, and it's how we use that life and what we do in our lives that make us the person that we are and make us see not just the beauty of life, but what life is truly about. Like when Lum, Ataru, and Shinobu are trying to find their ideal future through these doors that have different timelines and show different futures on how not only them, but as well as the other characters of the series, showcasing the different lifestyles they have in these different types of futures. And while some of them are good, some of them are very bizarre. At the very least, Lum and Ataru have an ideal future that they want to look for specifically. Lum is of course having a future in which she and Ataru are together, and Ataru, obviously if you have watched this series, Ataru's future is of him having a harem full of the girls that he is bothering on a daily basis. But despite these two having an ideal future, the only one who doesn't seem to have a very clear idea of their ideal future is Shinobu. Despite the many different timelines that they visit, Shinobu's still unsure as to what her ideal future is. It wouldn't be until later on when she finally decides what her ideal future is, and that is everything still being the same. She still wants to be around the people that she knows and has built a good relationship with them, and people that haven't changed one bit, whether it's their personality or their antics that they're pulling. For Shinobu, this is the ideal future, and while she is probably fully aware that this may not happen in the future, or something is going to be completely different from what she hopes for, this is a great demonstration on how sometimes in our lives we all have believed that hopefully we will still have the same lifestyle that we have. Hopefully we're still able to be around the people that we got to know, and you're hopeful that nothing really drastically changes between your relationships and or the life that you have right now. But the reality is that things change whether we like it or not. We are oftentimes very hopeful that we don't have to have a drastic change in our lives, but the truth is that we never truly know what the future holds. And this includes the relationship between the many people that we know, whether it's friends, acquaintances, etc. We all have the realization that people are going to change, and while you are hopeful that the people you know don't change drastically, it's going to happen. Whether it's a good change or a bad change, people change. And while we do have rare occasions where some people are able to still keep the relationships that they had for a really long time, that's not everybody. So I think this moment really captured that we all wish that our lives will remain the same, but the reality is that may or may not happen, and we can only dream of that future happening in our lives. But this isn't the only moment that it gets to showcase how we should appreciate life and cherish every moment, because you never know what may happen to you since life is so unpredictable. This is best shown when Ataru is requested to spend time with a girl who has recently passed away, but she's still roaming around the world in her ghost form, which means that she still has a lot of things that she wants to do before passing on. And one of the things is revealed is that when she was still alive and she was at the hospital, she saw at her window Ataru, and she became very interested in him and hoped that she will be able to meet him and spend time with him together. And while Ataru may be seen as somebody who's only thinks about himself and has a habit of bothering girls on a daily basis, making Lum jealous, he's actually very caring in this episode, and he actually shows that he is considerate of others, which is great character development on his part. And it shows that even he has morals and he isn't going to back out of this just because he doesn't want to. This is something that's important for this girl, and he's going to make sure that she enjoys it till the very end. And while the date was interesting to say the least, it did demonstrate that Ataru had the patience and he was willing to do anything to make this girl happy, making sure that she spent her time greatly and making sure that she was able to enjoy the many things that while normally people will take for granted, for her it was something special because this wasn't something that she was going to frequently see or do since she was at a limit. And once they see the fireworks show, she decides that the time has come and requests Ataru if she can hold his hand, in which he accepts, but this was only for a short moment as she of course would disappear. And while even though she's already gone, Ataru still is wearing the hat and scarf that she made for him. When he could have easily taken it off at that very moment, he decides to wear it because it's not only to pay respects, but it's a demonstration that he appreciated his time with her and he's going to cherish every moment that he had with her. And it's a memory that he will never forget. And to further prove how much of a good person Ataru is, he even decides to visit her grave and once again pay his respects. Despite not ever interacting with this girl all throughout his entire life, and despite only being one date that he was able to spend time with her, it was enough to him to realize that this person was a good person and this was somebody that will never be forgotten. And these scenarios I think is a great representation that we should always cherish our life and we should always take every moment and appreciate it, because if we take it for granted, we won't know when we're going to have another opportunity to experience these moments once again. Some people unfortunately aren't able to experience everything about life due to unfortunate circumstances, and sometimes it's out of their control, but it all depends on how they're able to overcome it and how they're still able to move on despite everything that has been thrown at them. It's a really great reminder that no matter how hard life is or how unfortunate your life isn't always going to be negative. There's always going to be something positive, and to not waste any moment of your life, because life is just that unpredictable. So all we could do is live in the present and see where it all leads from there. But I think the most important moments in which we see just how really everyone should value life, and really we shouldn't take the people around us or the things that are around us for granted, is of course the relationship between Lum and Ataru. And while yes, the relationship is very chaotic, with Ataru seeming to not be interested in Lum and Lum always intervening with Ataru's daily life, as the story keeps moving forward, we start to see just how much of the relationship, while it may not seem like they're getting close, it's actually very close. And while Ataru may not show it and have his tsundere moments, he does care for Lum, whether he wants to admit it or not. And there are many examples of him showcasing that he does in fact care for Lum. Like going back to the whole situation with the future doors, where him, Lum, and Shinobu wanted to see their ideal futures. There is a timeline in which Ataru sees that him and Lum are getting married, but when this future door is about to be destroyed, Ataru does everything he can to save this door, because in reality he wants this future to be saved. He doesn't want this future to be destroyed and pretend like it never happened. Or when Lum was bitten by a cow and her horns grew bigger and she believed that she was going to turn into a cow because of the bite. When Ataru saw her crying and seeing just how sad she was, that she was fearful that she was going to turn into a cow, Ataru confirmed to her that no matter what, even if that scenario were to happen, he is going to take care of her no matter what, because that just shows us how much of an important person Lum is to Ataru. And even though that scenario never happened, in which Lum did turn into a cow, just him reminding her that he is going to be there for her no matter the circumstances is a great showcasing that Ataru is still a good person, regardless of the many antics and the many things that he does that makes him look like a bad person, because deep down he is a good person. He just has trouble showing it. But I think the two biggest examples of showing just how strong Lum and Ataru's relationship has really gotten is of course when Ataru believes that Lum has left him, and this is because due to them having an argument in which Ataru states very clearly that he wishes that Lum was no longer part of his life. After this, the next day, he notices that Lum isn't around, and at first he's happy because he doesn't have to deal with her, but as the days go by and Lum still isn't around, you can quickly see Ataru's demeanor start to change drastically as he starts to become more sad and more depressed and starts to be fully convinced that Lum did in fact leave, that she is not going to be part of his life anymore and he will never see her again. At that point, Ataru really starts to show just how much Lum means to him and realizes that he took her for granted. And it's maybe because of his lifestyle, how he's always fast paced, and because he's never really had this experience before with a girl fully into him, since most of the time he's always been rejected. But for him that is completely normal, as it's this demonstration that he's not really committed into having an actual relationship, since he really does want to enjoy his life till the very end, as the youth isn't going to last forever, and he probably is fully aware of this, which is why he's always doing a bunch of crazy things. It's because he wants to enjoy every moment, no matter how insane his actions is. As long as he's living at the moment, that's all that matters. But here we see that Ataru starts to realize ever since Lum became part of his life, he's been experiencing things that he never thought would experience, whether it's special feelings for someone that he at first didn't seem to be interested in, but now that's not the case. It makes him realize that he in fact took Lum for granted. And when he's crying on his bed and Lum was able to hear all this, it really makes her happy, because while it may seem on the outside that she isn't appreciated by him, that's not the case, as in these moments she could hear just how sad he truly is because she is not around. And when she reunites with him once again, because as it turns out, the only reason why she was away for a couple of days was because she had to do things that are required for aliens to do. But once she's able to see Ataru once again, and once Ataru notices her that she is back, while he tries to be subtle about it, it makes him so relieved that he got to see Lum once again, meaning that all this time, Lum had intentions of coming back to him no matter what. And I think the other moment that signifies just how beautiful the relationship between Ataru and Lum is basically the finale of the series, in which we get to see just how far the relationship has gotten. And that's because during this arc, Lum will get kidnapped and will be forced to have an arranged marriage by someone she clearly has no interest in, and it will be up to Ataru and the rest of his friends, this includes Lum's as well, to go and try and rescue her and prevent her from being forced to marry somebody that she does not like. However, it was during this rescue mission that a misunderstanding between Lum and Ataru happened, causing both of them to rift apart. And to make it even more worse, mushrooms started to appear in Ataru's town, and it will only be a matter of time that the mushrooms would spread all over the earth. And this will lead to Lum proposing that if he wants to save Earth, as it's revealed there's actually a solution into taking down these mushrooms, then she and him are going to compete in a game of tag. This is tying back to the beginning of the story of the series, because this is how Lum and Ataru interacted to begin with, in the game of tag. And even though Ataru was given a limit of time, this being 10 days, he shows no hesitation of trying to fix things quickly, as due to him and Lum's stubbornness to talk things out, this game will last until the final day. And just when it seems that things are about to be over and the earth is doomed, Lum finally confronts Ataru, telling him why doesn't he just confess and just reveal how he actually feels about her, and things will be much more easier, and that's all she really wants, just his honest feelings about her. And of course, this is where Ataru counters, saying that he doesn't need to because it's very obvious, how he feels about her, revealing that all this time the only reason why Ataru wasn't revealing Lum about his honest feelings towards her wasn't because of his pride or his ego. It's because he felt really upset that Lum still wanted proof he cared about her when it's very obvious that he did. Otherwise, he wouldn't have felt sad when he thought that Lum left him for good. He wouldn't have complimented her when she was feeling down, and he wouldn't stick by her if he thought she was a nuisance to his life. All these things were pretty obvious that Ataru was always fine being around Lum. For him, his actions spoke more louder than his words. But the thing that would prove to Lum that Ataru was being genuine and he did in fact care for Lum all the way through was when Ataru was still holding her horns. The reason being is because when she was being kidnapped, she lost her powers and her horns fell off of her head. So all this time, Ataru was holding them for her, and as soon as she saw this, she realized that Ataru did have a point. How all this time, how could she forget everything that Ataru did and said? While sure, he isn't perfect, he is still a good person. And once they reconcile, everything starts to go back to normal and all their problems start to be resolved and their lives are back to normal. And while the ending, we didn't get a confession or anything like that, we still saw how really till the very end, these two are going to be together. As when Lum says that she's going to make sure that one day he says he loves her, he says that it won't happen until the day he dies, in which whether he knew or not, pretty much confirmed that he is going to stick by Lum until he no longer exists. So pretty much Urusei Yatsura is a really great reboot that not just reminded old fans what made this series special and great, but was able to also garner a new fan base as well. Many people never really watched this series probably because of how old it was. But thanks to this reboot, we really got to see why so many people were huge fans of this show way back then. And that's because the show had everything. It had great characters, great humor, but overall just a really good romance overall. Not to mention that even though it was able to be comedy for most of the time, it was still able to be emotional and make us care for the characters on what they were going through. I had a great time watching Urusei Yatsura, and if you still haven't watched this series, I highly recommend it because it's worth watching. Anyways, that's pretty much the entire video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time.